Can we welcome the Togo team home today? We are grateful that they're home, but we are also grateful for all that they got to experience over the last couple of weeks. We've been a part of Togo for almost 17 years now, I think, and it is amazing how God continues to open doors. And so today, I want you to hear a little more about that. And so the gentleman that I'm about to introduce, we're going to tag team this a little bit. He's going to kick it off. An introduction, thinking about it this week, the most blessed thing for me is that I can call him my friend for the last 24 years. But he's been part of this body for longer than that. And in all of those years has served a deacon, a leader in many ways, but for the last 17 or so, God has positioned him to lead this effort in Togo. We are grateful for him, and I want you to hear his heart today. Will you guys welcome today Mr. Kevin Jennings?
Whoa, how can you come up here after that? My goodness. You know how much he charged me for that statement? I'm going to have to borrow some money for gas to get home after paying him, so it's crazy. I am just so excited to be standing in front of you guys today. This is one of my favorite things in the world to do, is to come home and give this report. The support of the people that are sitting in front of me right now is just amazing. You guys have got behind just about anything we've ever taken hold of. And the Togo thing, for 17 years now, you've been a blessing for it. The questions, the support. You know, anytime we need money in Togo, I asked Virginia about it. There's always money in that account. Somebody in here gives money towards that all the time. That's just really appreciated. But on and on and on, it's just such a great thing to come back and tell you what's taken place there and just let you know how heartfelt and blessed that I am to be able to receive some of that from you all. Thank you so much. Before we start off too far today, I want to share with you a little bit about one of the members of our team that's in Togo. His name is Kofi. Kofi is one of the huge pieces of what takes place when we're there. When we're away, he does all the visits, he does all the reports, he takes care of whatever money we send over, he gets it to the right people. And what I want us to do real quick this minute is I want us to look at that camera right there, and I want you guys to give Kofi some applause in thanking him for what he does for us in Togo. Let's give it up for Kofi. Kofi, I too want to thank you for what you do for us there. It's just amazing. In September of 2021, we had just gotten back from a lengthy trip in Togo. As you all know, most of us got COVID. We got an extended stay plan, so we got to stay about a month there. But while we were there, God began to deal with me with some specific things about reaching people in those other areas. And one day he sent this huge storm the night before we were going to go into a village that we only had one way in and out if it was raining because of the streams and things like that. And as we were going to this village on these mud-soaked roads that were just almost impassable in the dry weather, let alone when it was wet, we come along this bridge. And this bridge enabled us to get from where we wanted to go. And in the process of seeing that bridge, that morning I was going to preach on 2 Corinthians 5:16. And this is a loose translation. This is what God said to me when I read it. There's much more detail to it, and we can get into that another day. But it says that we will view no one from a worldly point of view. And when I began to think about that touched me in my heart that there's a bridge that we can use to get to anybody. There is nobody that's unreachable because we can begin to build these processes and begin to think about how we can reach them. And that was really driven home to me on that trip. And ever since then, everything that I look about, everything I think about, well, what do we need to do to get a bridge to that person? What do we need to do to get a bridge to that group of people? You know, in Togo, we're dealing with a people group called the Inai people. And they are an unreached people group. And I'll get into more of that later, but I just want you to understand that building a bridge into that, what's it going to take to reach those people? Because they have never heard about Jesus. They've never heard the name of Jesus. So how do we go into there? How do we build relationships? And that's the bridge that we're talking about. A little bit of history on Togo. We began our first vision trip in the spring of 2007. There was a number of us that went into Togo. We went there for the first time, not knowing what was there. We visited all the different sites and looked at all the different things that were available for us to do and prayed through that. And God really placed on our heart that that's a place that we wanted to begin to do ministry in an international setting. So we began to take multiple trips. In between 2007 and 2014, there was tons and tons and tons of trips taken. Many people that are sitting in the room today have made that trip over, have made that impact, have done something that impacted those people in the south, around Mission Tove, Lome, and those regions. And there's been quite a blessing there. But in 2014, the Togo Baptist Convention reached out to us, and they said, hey, there's this people in the north. They've never heard about Jesus. Would you guys be interested in going up and seeing what you could do there? And so we did a vision trip, and we began to process what we can do, and we began to make those visits. And God just really opened doors. There again, the bridge comes into it. God began to put bridges out there so that we can clear those gaps. In 2014, we made our first trip. 2019, we had a church planted. In 2020, we began the process of building a house for the pastor, which he's living in now. And then in 2021, we came home with the idea of a medical clinic, and we began to stake that piece of property out for a building there, and we began building walls. And then in 2024, which is the last trip we just took, was what I call the moto trip, the one where we went out on motorcycles and was able to minister to those people in a different way. I want to talk about the people that were able to go on this trip were just amazing. We had one of the best teams that we could have ever had. You know how when you get a team of people, anytime you get a group of people together, and there's always that one person that's just hard to get along with. You got to give them extra grace. You got to pray a little more for them. You got to talk to them privately a little bit about what to do and not to do. We didn't have that, unless it was me. That's the only thing I can come up with. It had to be me because there wasn't anybody else acting like that. So it was just a great opportunity for us to have a great team. But the people that we had going, we had Scott and Matt and Nick. Those three were our young guns on this trip. They were just amazing. And just so you know, those three guys are our new leadership people for this Togo stuff. Scott's going to run with taking Togo to a new level. Those three guys are going to take the mission in Togo to a place that I could never reach. Those guys were so on top of things, what they're wanting to do in the training, what they're wanting to do with the trips, what they're wanting to do to instigate more people and awareness and getting people ready for that trip. I'm just really blessed that we have those young people in our church, not just in this ministry, but everywhere. When I look out and see the faces of all the young people here, I'm just really blessed at who we have here. And the fact that they're stepping into those leadership positions, those guys didn't even think twice about it. They stepped in, they started taking things on, and are doing a great job there. But thank you for those guys. We have three more guys that I call the old dogs. Never to their face, but they're old dogs. That would be Roger, Wayne, and my brother Dale. And I call them the old dogs. Those guys are seasoned veterans. They've been doing mission trips for a while. They have no problem going into an area, sharing Jesus, doing the labor that needs to be done, and not to shirk any responsibility. They just do a great job. And serving with them through the years has been a true blessing. We've bonded in incredible friendships and relationships, and just the openness that we have to be able to communicate and talk has just been great. And I would go anywhere in the world with those guys. It's just a great team of people to go with. But then we had poor little Lara. Lara was the only female on the trip. She was the only voice of reason on that trip. She was the one that got us back here with no broken bones, no bruises. Nobody's hurt. We're all back in one piece. Because this is what she was dealing with. Scott and Matt one day had their motos out on the highway, drawed a line in the gravel, and they were revving the motors to drag race, and she had to go out and stop it. And then I heard Roger and Wayne, they found a concrete block and some lumber, and they were building a ramp. They were going to jump theirs. So she got all that shut down, so we were able to get home in one piece. But it was really cool. But Larry did a great job. I'm really proud of her that she went. And the fact that she wasn't intimidated to go with those group of guys. Man, she fit in well. Her wisdom was great. Her input was great. And she really brought a soft side that when we were dealing with people, she would go in and talk with the females and deal with them and talk about their struggles. And she never backed off of that. She did a great job. And then myself, folks, I was just along for the ride. It was just an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to get there, see those people do their jobs, see them work. And it's just really cool that not only are they taking leadership, but they still let me go with them. They're still going to let me be a part of that. They're still going to let me participate in it. And just talking about going along for the ride, that brings us to the moto part of our trip. I can't begin to tell you what that was like, rolling into a village covered in dust, hot, smelly, all the things that go along with 100-degree weather and a lot of dust. But when we rolled into those villages, we rolled into the villages the same way that the African people do. There was no big white van with air conditioning and soft seats and all those kinds of things. We really connected with people on a different level than we ever have before. And in 2021, when I thought that up and began to ponder that, I've been so excited for 3 years to get back and be able to do that and to see what that was like to roll into those villages. And bam, just like that, we were there doing it. And we were rolling through, and the kids would come out and wave us down and want to talk to us. I mean, it was just a different experience. But we took away one of the blockage that kept us from engaging people, and they got closer to us. And once again, it's one more bridge that we're able to get to be able to reach a community. And they received that really well. Even when we went into meeting the chiefs and things like that, they were just impressed that we would come on motos. We were called the Yovos on motos in Togo. Yovo is white man, and they make it known very much that we were the white people in there. We stood out a little bit. But they would sing those songs to us and things like that. It was just a great opportunity. But for me personally, I want you to know that was just a grand thing to be able to be a part of that. And just so you know, that will become one of our standards. That will be one of those things that when we go back, we'll do that again. In fact, we're going to buy a motorcycle and start giving training so people are prepared when they get there so they can at least take off the first time. But really, seriously, it is something that we're going to continue to do because it does allow you to impact the people on a different level and connect with them on a different level. And it's really fun. Can you imagine West Africa on a motorcycle? That wind blowing through your hair? You guys laugh. That hurt my feelings a little bit. The mission trip that we were on this time was just crazy. It was, like I said, one of the best that we've ever had. One of the things that we dealt with when we were there was the school. As you know, the government shut our school down. It was not personal, though. They shut 50 other schools down as well. And there was a criteria that needed to be met, and expense-wise, we couldn't meet that criteria. But they provided other places for them to go. But what that enabled us to do was to open up that school as an after-school program. These kids that are participating in that are the NI kids, first of all, so we're engaging NI kids. We're helping to educate them. We're helping them in their schoolwork. You know, some of those kids may be behind a little bit, so this after-school program gives them an opportunity to go in, take their homework. They can be tutored in what they're working on. They can be given help so they can catch up and be, up to speed with a class. But we don't have any standards of education that we have to meet. We don't have to worry if they're going to pass the year-end test that they have to take. We can just give them that. We can love on them, and we can do all of that Jesus as part of the plan. We can share Jesus openly with them. We can do Bible school with them openly. We can have devotions with them openly, and there's never an issue with that. So it's really a win-win for us. We're not necessarily educating them, but we're helping them to be educated. But then the after-school program gives them a place to go, gives them Christian contact, and gives them a place that they can connect and be a part of. And so there's a huge piece of that I really like, and honestly, probably like better than what we were doing in the long run. Another piece of that that's really exciting for me is that as well as doing an after-school program for the students, we are beginning to do teaching for the adults. Illiteracy is a huge problem in that area. They're not able to read anything. They're not able to put anything on paper. They're not able to keep records. There's just a ton of things that we take for granted, but we're going to start the process of teaching them 1 or 2 nights a week, and that will enable them to move along. And then as we teach them and they become Christians, they're able to read for themselves. They're able to study for themselves. They're able to learn for themselves. And it just makes all that a lot easier. So that mission and those pieces were just huge. One of the things we were able to do is go in and meet some of the chiefs. This is where'd he go? The chief of, there he is, this guy right here. He is the chief of Belanca. Very interesting. We rolled into Belanca. I hadn't been there for 10 years. First time I was there, we just kind of skated through and looking at the village, didn't meet anybody and left. This time the chief was waiting on us. We got there, we visited with him. And as we were talking, very open to any question we had, very, very warm reception from him, and he was excited that we were there. And as we're talking, he asked us, he said, "So, why are you guys really here?" And at that point, we had no plans of sharing the gospel, sharing Jesus, sharing that we were Christians. We were there to build a superficial relationship and begin that process of getting to know one another. And so when he asked me that question, I'm like, well, I can't lie to him. I want to let him know why we're here. But we told him, so, well, we're followers of Jesus, and we've been working in Kalumi for the past few years, and we planted a church there. And we're just excited to meet more of the friends. The chief in Kalumi encouraged us to go meet the other chiefs. And so that's why we're here. His words back to me was, why don't you come plant a church here? We need one. This is a Muslim chief in a Muslim community that said, we need a church. Man, that gives me cold chills to think about. Thank you. You do not know how big of a deal it was that he said that. How big of a deal is that he opened up his village to having a church there. And the chief that's up there right now, he's the one in Kalumi that we've been dealing with for years. Daniel asked him on this trip, and we've shared Jesus with him several times, and he's like, oh yeah, I know who Jesus is, and I think he's a great guy. Just the Muslim statements about Jesus, basically. But Daniel asked him on this trip, he said, Chief, if one of your kids wanted to join our church, what would you say? Muslim chief says, I would encourage it. And he said, would there be any problems? He said, there wouldn't be any repercussions anywhere. Me and everybody in my chief reign would support that. Folks, that's big. That's huge. Because in other countries, if you become a Christian, you would die. They would take your life. You would have to hide. So to get in those statements, well, and what I'm trying to communicate with that is how open that community is for the gospel, for us to be aggressive with going in, continue the building of the relationships, continue the work that's been being done, but also getting aggressive with the gospel, getting aggressive with how we share, and being willing to do that, which takes teams, takes time, takes money, takes more of all of us working together to get that accomplished, but it's one of those things that would just be great. One of the other things we did is in Cara, we did a pastor's conference, and the pastor's conference went from being a talk around a round table to a pastor's conference to a talk around to a round table. And When we got into the north, we met with some of them and just got a really warm reception there. It was really great. And anytime we've ever been there, for us to encourage them and them to encourage us is always a blessing. And they give us some really good feedback on how to speak with Muslims and how to engage them and how to talk to them and what to do when they become Christians and those kinds of things. And those guys up there and that whole leadership, there's women on it as well, they're just really important for us. And if I ever get a chance to take more of you up there, just the experience is worth the time, just how excited they are. And if you can imagine, Kara is just this big, wide circle and kind of in the middle of nowhere, and this group of people are just actively and aggressively teaching and preaching and serving the Lord. And when we come in and encourage that, it's a huge blessing for them. We did get to see animals again, always a huge highlight. I love that piece of it when we get to see the elephants and the lions, and we get to throw food at them and watch them eat it up and crunch the bones. That's kind of exciting thing to see as well. But for us to continue to do those ministries and stuff is just really cool. But one thing that's taken place there now that is new for us is, I told you in the beginning, we began in Mission Tove with Daniel's church. Daniel's church is now sending missionaries out of his church. That's huge. For us to go in and be working with a group of people for an amount of time, and then that group of people begin to send missionaries out. That's the team that showed up. Daniel told me there was 14 people going to the north for ministry. 18 people showed up, and that's just quite a blessing. And the work ethic of those people was incredible. They worked we would go off on the motos, and they'd already be working. We would come back, and they would still be working and singing. I mean, they were just excited to be there. They were working on the mission, building it up, and they were also doing ministry things in the community. But just the work ethic was incredible. One of the things that really blessed me, when Jesse and I was there in June, we debriefed a mission team that had gone to the north prior to us being there. And we were sitting in a meeting, and through a translator, they would stand up, share their testimony. We could ask questions or whatever, because I really wanted to understand where their heart was and where their mind was with that. This one lady stands up specifically, and she'll always stand out to me with her statement. But she said when she heard the opportunity to go, she said she accepted immediately. She went home, and she asked her husband, she said, "Are you interested in going to the north with me?" And he says, "No, I don't want to do that." And she looks at him and says, "If we get into the north," understand this is 4 hours away from her home, a place she'd never been. She'd probably never been out of her village before. But she's going 4 hours. That's like from here to Timbuktu in our minds. But she said, "If we get in the north and the Muslim people want to fight with us and they kill me," she said, "you'll have to raise the kids by yourself." That was kind of funny when she said it, but think about what she said. She said, "I'm willing to go to a place I don't know, to a people I don't know, and I'm willing to die to talk about Jesus." Man, that gives you cold chills, doesn't it? She put her life on the line. In her mind, she put her life on the line. She drew a line in the sand and said, "I'm ready to go do this." And when in the debrief, she said, "I'm ready to go again." She was committed to mission work and what it meant to take the name of Jesus to a place that had never seen it before. Daniel's team was incredible. It was just great. What they did in the medical clinic, what they built, the building is just going to be beautiful when it's done. We literally, right now, are probably about $4,000 away from having this building complete. This is just kind of a view of the space. I asked Daniel to build us a 2-room building for a medical clinic. This is what he built. That must be 2 rooms in his world. But he built something, and honestly, the wisdom in that is bigger than my wisdom. My wisdom was get a building that we can use as quick as we can. We'll add on to it later or build another one later. His wisdom was, let's just build it big now and we'll have it. And without permission, this is what we came up with, and I'm really thankful for it. It's going to be a huge blessing. But while we were there, they took those walls up the rest of the way. They put the gables on the side. They dug the footings for the porches that'll go around it, and we bought the lumber to put the rafters in, and we bought the sheet metal to put the tent on, and we paid for the labor to have that done. Probably this week, the sheeting goes on the roof, and the building will be in the dry. And like I said, it's probably about $4,000 to get it secured, get some concrete down so it's usable, and get the doors and windows on it, and make it to where it's a building that we can go in and utilize somewhere. With that said, I'm hoping that we're coming back with enough enthusiasm and interest and drive and determination that group and the small influence that we have, that we can get that money together and we can make that happen soon. Because this is the next thing that I want to do is I want to gather the people that know medicine. I want to see us gather a doctor. I want to see a physician assistants, a nurse practitioner, an RN, and anybody else that has letters that go with health. Get into a group, and then out of that group create a vision team for a mission trip, and then take a vision trip to Togo and look at the building, see how we can facilitate it to work, look at the people and the elements, and then meet with the doctors and the people that are going to assist us there. Kofi has contacts like you wouldn't believe. He took us to this extremely high official doctor that worked at like a blood institute doing analyzation and finding cures for stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll be a part of that with you guys. I'll come in with you. Yeah, we can use my credentials on that. And then in the South, we have the same kind of people that are willing to come in. So that enables our doctors to be able to go over there and have somebody to work under and be safe with their business as well. But that's really exciting that we have those opportunities, and we have those people. We have all those people within our campuses that we can come together and do that. And it's something that I want us to see get going as soon as possible. We talked about that a lot in 2021. COVID got in the way. Time got in the way, but it's time to start doing that again. It's time to get motivated in making that happen. And as soon as we can, I want to begin that process and begin having those meetings. If you want to be a part of that, don't hesitate to get with me, and we'll begin to talk about it. We have tons of future opportunities. In the future, Scott has some specific plans for training that's going to be really cool, that people can get a hold of what it's like to be in missions before they go. We got places in Argentina that we can go, and very close to third world situations where we can go and you can spend a day and you can see how you fit into a mission setting for a short amount of time. We have opportunities in Mexico. Folks, if a group wanted to go to Mexico, we can have a team ready to go in about 2 or 3 weeks to Mexico. It really is that simple. If you have about $350 in your passport, we can make that happen. We leave on a Thursday and we come back on a Monday. There's not that much time off of work, and we can make it happen. Many of you that's sitting in here have been on that trip, and you would endorse that as well. It's a hard push driving, but you have 2 or 3 days on the ministry field and then a hard drive home. But it's something that we can do, and it's something that we want to continue as part of that training for us to be able to do the international stuff. We want to be able to train for people that want to go to Taiwan. We want them to understand what that's like, what it's like when you step off the plane for the first time, what it's like when you begin to engage the people. Same way in Togo. When you step off the plane, what it's like when you walk out into the sea of people and the smells and just the closeness of everybody around you. And get them prepared for that so that there's no shock and no culture shock when they get there. But that's all future stuff. That's all things that are going to begin to happen right away. You'll begin to hear more about it. I'm sure Scott will be making announcements about those things soon. But get on board with that. Even if all you do is the training and you never go past the training, it's going to be worth it. Because missions is not in Argentina. Missions is not in Mexico. Missions is not in Taiwan or Togo. Missions is your next door neighbor. Mission is the people over your back fence. Missions is anybody in your family that needs to know Jesus. But you can begin the process of learning how to do that and understanding the need for it even more. In Matthew chapter 2, verse 3, there's a story that's really exciting. We used this story last year quite a little bit. Can you ladies help me? All four of you. You can take it over there. This is a little mat that we used for Bible school, and we used in Mexico, we used here at church, all over. But in Mark chapter 2, verse 3, it says that 4 men came into a village carrying a friend on a mat. And that friend was sick. I really don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he was born that way, if he had a motorcycle accident or fell off a horse or whatever. Something happened that he couldn't get himself to Jesus. And those 4 people, each one holding one corner of that mat, came to the house that Jesus was in. When they got to the house, they seen that they couldn't get through the doors because of all the people around there. And so they went up the back stairs, and they got on the roof, they pulled back the tiles, and they let that man down in front of Jesus. Jesus was so impressed with what they had done, he looked at the man and he said, "Son, your sins are forgiven." That story is huge. When we look at this mat, visualize 4 people holding it. This is what missions is about. There's 5 people that are represented in that story. One person needs to always be praying for missions, praying for your friends, have a prayer list going on. You are actively part of missions when you're doing that. Second person, folks, we need people that can give. We need people that can give money so that somebody that doesn't have money can go, that is willing to go. We need people that can do that. We need people that can give money to help a medical clinic get finished. We need people to give money so we can plant churches in FM and Belanca and get those staffed. We need people that can do all those different things, and it takes a special person to be able to do that. Not all of us can do it, but we need that. The third person that we need on the corner of that mat is the people that can plan trips, plan schedules, engage people, see past what's in front of them and plan around that. For us, when we were coming back from Togo, we were about 2 hours out, and it wasn't evident to me, but we were going to miss our flight in Washington, D.C. We had people on the ground here that was already arranging what was going to take place for us when we got to D.C., where, opportunities for us to sleep, opportunities for different airfare. All that was being done, and we weren't even aware that it was being done until we got on the ground. But we need those people that are planners, that are thinkers, that can put spreadsheets together, that can make things make sense on paper, and then be able to pass them out to the people that can go and do it. Fourth person is that person that goes. Not everybody in the room is going to go to Togo. I know that. Would never pretend otherwise. But some of you will. We need you. We need you to do that. We need you to go to Argentina, Mexico, Taiwan, Mexico, or Togo. We need those people to do those things. And that fourth person is important, but everybody on a corner. Because if you got a hold of that corner and you let go, folks, the person riding on the mat is going to fall off. We're going to lose them. We need all 4 people on that mat. The fifth person is the person on the mat. The fifth person is the one that we are actively taking to Jesus on that mat, because we know that's where the healing is going to take place. We know that's where the blessing is going to be found. We know that's where the healing is going to take place. If you're not riding the mat, if there's not people taking you actively to Jesus, you need to have a hold of one of those 4 corners. You need to be part of that team that are taking people to Jesus. Whether it be abroad or next door, you need to be a part of that. Guys, thank you so much for your time. If any of you have small groups, Sunday school classes, or anything, you want more information, we can bring a team in and we can visit with you there. We got hours that we could talk. We got hours of information. We got 1,000 pictures. We got things we could talk about with you. But I want to thank you for the 20 minutes that you gave me today, and what a blessing it is to stand in front of you as a church. And guys, I love you. You've been really good to me through the years, and you've not ran me off yet, so thank you.
What a beautiful story God is writing there. I'm going to wrap this up. Just give me 5 minutes or so, because there's something really cool that I want you to see. It's attached to Genesis, which we've been studying. And so before we move past Genesis, I want you to see it. We have a theme for this year called Prodigal. Prodigal. We've got a God who is calling prodigals into the light from everywhere in the world, all right? And what we've discovered as we've studied this story out of Luke chapter 15 that Jesus tells is that the real prodigal in the story is the Father with a recklessly spendthrift grace. And so I want to show you something from Genesis. Let's go to Genesis 33. In Genesis 33, we heard the story about Jacob and Esau, you remember, and Jacob is the younger brother who's deceived his father and deceived, his brother Esau, and it's time for him to go home, which means he must encounter his older brother. Now, do you hear the story? He's left, and he's trying to come home. And he must encounter his older brother. And this is what it says in Genesis 33, verse 4. I want you to pay attention to the language. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Remember that? Now, I want you to pay attention to the language, and I'm asking you, does that language sound familiar? Ran, threw, kissed, wept? And the answer is yes, it sounds familiar. It sounds familiar because in the story in Luke chapter 15 that Jesus tells about the prodigal son who comes home, this is how it reads in verse 20. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. I imagine tears flowing down that father's face. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Same words. Same words. Isn't that wild? And I believe that Jesus is absolutely on purpose. He knows that the Pharisees to whom he speaks, they've memorized Genesis. They know the story of Jacob and Esau well. They know the exact language that is there. And the picture that we see is that from the beginning, Jesus has always been teaching, right? Someone is to be on the search. Someone on the search. And it is the older brother who fits this pattern. The father in Jesus' story ends up filling that role, but it really should have been a prodigal story where the older brother says, my younger brother has been selfish, my younger brother has been foolish, but I am going to search for him and bring him home, even at an enormous cost to himself. You see, mercy and forgiveness must be free to the one who has done wrong. Otherwise, it's not really mercy and forgiveness. But mercy and forgiveness always comes at a cost to the one who does the forgiving. Jesus, in the story of the prodigal son, doesn't put a picture of a true older brother in the story. One who's willing to pay the cost, who's willing to seek and to save what was lost. And it makes us long for a true older brother. But the greatest picture is that in Luke chapter 15, there is a true older brother. He's the one telling the story. Because Jesus would not just go to another country. he would leave heaven itself and put on skin to walk among us. And Jesus wouldn't just pay a monetary price, but he would give his life. Y'all, it's the picture in this story. Jesus tells 3 stories that day in Luke chapter 15 about a lost sheep, about a lost coin, and about a lost son. Only in the 3rd story does nobody go searching. Jesus says, I've called you to search. We've all rebelled against God. There's no way home unless someone bears the cost that we might receive mercy and forgiveness. And y'all, this is why the mission is so critical for us, that it be a part of the DNA of who we are as a church. This truth has changed our heart because we understand what it took to bring us home. It has changed our heart that we no longer serve God out of a fear-based need to control him, but we serve him out of love and joy and gratitude. That's why Heart of Life will go to an unreached people group in Togo. And that's why Heart of Life will step into the schools in Taiwan. It's why we have shelters for orphans in Thailand and Nepal and Myanmar and India and China. It's why some of you every week serve at the vault. It's why some of you make trips to the nursing home. It's why some of you feed the homeless. It's why we do Adopt the Block. This is the why behind it. In a couple of weeks, Easter's coming. It's a reason for God's people to celebrate, obviously, the greatest victory of a Jesus who died for our sin and then rose from the dead. But y'all, people who have nothing to do with Jesus will sometimes show up at Easter. So I'm inviting you to be bold. I'm inviting you to take the opportunity. I'm inviting you in light of the fact that God has called us to be the brothers who go after our brothers and sisters who are not yet home and make an invite. Make an invite. Start working now. Invite somebody to come. And whenever they can come that weekend, you go with them. If it's on Sunday and it's here, then cool. Maybe it'd be on a Saturday night at Harrisonville. I'm saying whenever they could be a part, you go with them. And this is what we're asking. If you bring somebody with you, we want you to be able to sit with them in the room. But if you weren't able to bring somebody with you, and maybe you worked hard at it, maybe you invited the best you could and they just wouldn't. If you're not able to bring someone with you, come on. But I'm asking you to give those who brought someone with you the best places to park and the best places to sit. And I don't know if you know this or not, so I'm going to tell you. It is often the opinion of many people that the front rows are not the best places to sit. So I'm kind of joking saying, fill up the front rows, seriously, so that people who come in and might not be so comfortable on the front row have a spot to sit. All right, it's just a really simple mindset. It's just a really straight, but the reason behind all of that, why would we act this way? Because we have a God who is calling prodigals into the light from all over the world. He brought us home at great cost, and now he sends us after brothers and sisters who are lost. That's our business because it's our Father's business. We are Heart of Life. We're about Jesus, his family, and his mission. Let me pray for you, and we're going to celebrate such a love. God, I thank you for the truth that you give us from your word. I thank you for just the evidence of your faithfulness today that Kevin has shared with us. God, I thank you for writing a story in Togo that is so much bigger than us. God, so many times along the way that we would not know what to do next, but you have just continued to open opportunity after opportunity. God, I'm asking you to help us to believe today, right here, that same heart and that same power that we have seen you work with in Togo is the same heart and same power that you work with here. And so, God, for many in this room who know people, brothers, sisters, parents, kids, friends, work acquaintances, teammates, whatever it may be, God, people who do not yet know you, will you give us faith and boldness to believe and to act? You've called us to be a people on the search because you are the God who brings them home. God, we're asking already, and many would come to see how great you are. Many would come to see how you love. Many would put their trust in you. God, may you continue to give us as a church your heart for your mission. We celebrate that. We celebrate that because of your recklessly spendthrift love and grace. It's in the name of Jesus we thank you.